Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Mrinmoy Pramanik. I teach comparative Indian language and literature at the University of Calcutta. Now we will discuss about Kuntaka and his contribution to Indian poetics. Kuntaka is the originator of the concept of Vakrokti. He is the originator of Vakrokti school of Sanskrit literary theory or ancient Indian poetics. He came after Anandavardhan of 19th century and before Abhinavagupta of 10th century. His time was the time of high merit of Indian poetics because Indian poetics already has been established when he started working with his Vakrokti school and thought on Vakrokti. Dhananjaya and Rajshekhara both are his contemporary, and these two persons are erudite scholar in Indian poetics and ancient Indian literary thoughts. According to Ganesh Devi, Vakrokti and the Alamkara are two Indian schools which are very close to Western schools of thought of formalism and new criticism. Ganesh Devi commented, Vakrokti is a theory of poetry which perceives poetry essentially as terms of the language of its expression. Ganesh Devi commented, Vakrokti is a theory of poetry which perceives poetry essentially as terms of the language of its expression. It sees the poetic language as language of metaphor and suggestive communication. Unquote. The manuscript of Kuntaka's Vakrokti-jivita was appeared as a final version with the initiative and intense work done by Sushil Kumar De in 1922. This manuscript was found as incomplete in 4 chapters. Some scholars assume this book has its 5th chapter also, but it's yet not proved. Scholars assume that Kuntak was a Kashmiri because some hints were found regarding this. It is also assumed that Kuntaka was alive in the time between Anandavardhan and Abhinavagupta, as I mentioned earlier. He is also assumed that he appeared before Mahimbhatta, as Mahimbhatta mentioned about him in different slokas. If Mahimbhatta came between 1020 to 1060, then Kuntaka was there between 1000 to 1030. It is also assumed by some scholars. Kuntaka never mentioned about Abhinavagupta, and Abhinavagupta also never mentioned about Kuntaka. Though he talked about Vakrokti, Abhinavagupta talked about Vakrokti, but he didn't mention anything about Kuntaka. It means either they were contemporary to each other or Kuntaka came after Abhinavagupta. Mahimbhatta, Hemchandra and Voja told that Kuntaka was the author of the Karika and Britti of his Vakrokti-jivita. Though some scholars have also doubt on this because the style of language found in Karika and found in Britti are completely different. The theory of Vakrokti is found even before Kuntaka had made it sophisticated and scientific with his rare talent. Bhamaha, among the theorists who talked about Vakrokti, is most ancient. Kuntaka primarily adopted Vamaha's idea of Vakrokti and he elaborated it. Rudrat in his Kavyalankara, which was came into being in 9th century, also talked about Vakrokti. Vakrokti was generally perceived as a Shabdalankara, but it did not have much significance beyond its significance as Shabdalankar in Bhamaha, Dandi and Vamana's understanding. But Kuntaka's understanding is entirely different than these thoughts. As an Alamkara, Vakrokti was very inclusive to Bhamaha. He included all types of Alankara under the term of Vakrokti. According to Vamaha, Vakrokti is the soul of poetry. The way words are become different than the daily conversation and gives pleasure to the mind of the Rasika or on one who accomplishes poetry is Vakrokti. Bhamaha did not accept Shabha Bhakti as a type of Alamkara, but Dandi accepted both Shabha Bhakti and Vakrokti as Alamkara. He believed poetry means Alamkara. If the daily use of language is reformulated with Alamkara, it becomes Vakrokti, and that Vakrokti is led by Slesha. And this is how Vakrokti creates beauty in poetry. According to Kuntaka, the Vakrokti is created by Vaidagdha Bhangi Vaniti Ruchyate. Vaidagdha Bhangi Vaniti Ruchyate, which means a poetic talent with his own creative power creates such attractive subject which being earthly sounds heavenly to the Rasika or to the readers who has authority to accomplish. Shabha Bhakti defines or represents things or objects as it is there in the world of reality. Kuntaka argues there is no credit of creating Shabha Bhakti because it does not bring any uniqueness in the poetic thought, and Alamkara also cannot perform its role here in the Shabha Bhakti. Shabha Bhakti is daily usage of language and the daily narration of conversation. So it is not unique and it cannot be competent to explore the poetic feelings in poetry. Alamkara makes the object beautiful by putting the elements which are not there in the object. And this is how objects are glorified by Alamkara, and then it creates something else what was not there. It put the vava, the feelings in the poetry. Shabda and Artha make the body of poetry, and it is a very much respected philosophical thought from the practical experience in Indian practice that Shabda and Artha both has competent to create the marvelous, the heavenly subject for the human being. If these two comes together, it can be beautiful with the Vakrokti. The Shabda and the Artha and the relation between Shabda and Artha can be beautiful if the Vakrokti is added there. If Vakrokti is created, not added, the Vakrokti is created with these two components, then these two components together can be beautiful. The cleverness of words should not cover the beauty of the poem. Tadvidgana means the group of scholars who understand poetry will evaluate this highest art of creation of poetry in a poet. So the Vakrokti, whether Vakrokti is successfully exist in a poetry, will be evaluated, will be understood, will be appreciated by the group of scholars whom Kuntaka mentioned as Tadvidgana. The term Vakrokti is composed of Vakra plus Ukti, where the latter Ukti derived from Vak Paribhashane can easily be taken to mean a poetic expression, a clever speech or a pithy statement. It is, however, the former component, Vakra, of the term Vakrokti, evoking diverse shades of meanings and suggestions, that is widely discussed and interpreted in various manners. The phonetic, now let us talk about different kind of Vakrokti which is mentioned in Kuntaka's Vakrokti-jivita. And for this purpose, you can find the link in e-content to get detail about it. And I quote from Srinivas Rao: the Varna Vinyasa Vakrata, it encompasses alliteration, rhyme, and all other subtle effects of sound in poetry. Kuntaka recognizes onomatopoeic effects. Shakespeare's fair is foul and foul is fair, like. This is the example of this Varna Vinyasa Vakrata. And Padapurvada Vakrata, or lexical figurativeness, Srinivas Rao said that it includes stylistic choice in vocabulary, metaphor, power of adjectives, and veiled expressions. For example, carefully concealing Mahapataka, or is he dispatched? Grammatical figurativeness, or Pratyaya Vakrata, involves the draft use of suffixes, especially those indicating numbers, person, and case forms. It also includes delineation of inanimate objects as animate and personification of objects instead of saying tense. Like Rao took example, make my seated heart knock at my ribs. Next is Vakya Vakrata, or it is the permeating presence that enters all other elements. The effect is akin to a painter's stroke that shines out distinctively from the beauty of the material used. Most of the figures of speech are instances of it, and Srinivas Rao took an example of a stanza for this purpose. Out, out, brief candle, life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that starts and frets his hour upon stage, and then is heard no more. Kuntaka's theory does not stop with the analysis of sentence as is done in stylistic studies. And in that sense, the Kuntaka's theory of Vakrokti is different than the Western theory of stylistics. Since techniques like contextual and compositional figurativeness analyze larger segments of the discourse than the sentence, Rao commented. And two other figurativeness or Vakrata is also there, and it's mentioned by Kuntaka in Vakrokti-jivitam. That's contextual figurativeness and compositional figurativeness. Contextual figurativeness is Prakarna Vakrata, and compositional figurativeness is Prabandha Vakrata. Prakarna Vakrata comprises all those factors which contribute to the strikingness of the context, the equivocation in the prediction of witches, culminating in the materialization of the Virnamhood coming to Dunsinen, the emergence of Macduff, untimely ripped from his mother's womb to kill Macbeth, the apparition of the witches and the sleepwalking scene are examples of contextual figurativeness. These examples and the definition in English is given by Srinivasa Rao. Compositional figurativeness, Prabandha Vakrata. This includes adaptation of a story from a well-known source with new twist added to it, with a new emotional significance. Deletion of unnecessary episodes, the development of even mirror incidents into events of far-reaching consequences and stringiness. Kuntaka regards a literary composition as an allegory which conveys some profound moral message, and this moral content is also regarded as a compositional figurativeness. Kuntaka explains Vakrokti as the artistic turn of speech, or Vaidagdham Bhangi, or the deviated or distinct from the common mode of speech. Vakrotva is primarily used in the sense of poetic beauty. It is striking and is marked by the peculiar turn imparted by the creative imagination or creative talent, what Kuntaka said about the talent of poet, or the Karayitri Shakti. It stands for charming, attractive and suggestive utterances that characterize poetry. The notion of Vakrata or deviation covers both the word Sabda and meaning Artha. The ways of Vakrokti are indeed countless. Vakrokti is the index of a poet's virtuosity or Kavi Kushala. Kuntaka describes the creativity of a poet as Vakra Kavi Vyapara or Kavi Vyapara Vakrata, art in the poetic process. This, according to Kuntaka, is the primary source of poetry. Without failing in creation of this, a successful poetry cannot be created, and has the potential to create aesthetic elegance that brings joy to the cultured reader with a refined taste, or that cultured reader is mentioned as Shahridaya. While Anandavardhana emphasized the object and delight of poetry from reader's point of view, Kuntaka brought a sense of balance into poetic appreciation by highlighting the poet's own point of view. He attempted to outline the poetic process or Kavi Vyapara, the genius at work or Kavi Karma, and the mysterious process of how the Kavya takes shape in the poet's mind and emerges as a thing of great beauty, according to Srinivasa. Later, Rudrata treats Vakrokti as a mere play of words or pretended speech in which a word or a sentence meant by the poet in one sense is understood by the reader in quite another sense, either because it is uttered with a peculiar intonation or kakudhvani or kakuvakrata, which changes the meaning, or because the words carry more than one meaning, or slesha vakrata. Vamana differs from Rudrata and treats Vakrata as an aspect of Artha Alamkara, where the indicated sense or Lakshana is brought out or amplified by taking help of similarities or Shadrushya. Thus, Vakrokti, in his view, is basically a metaphor. Shadrushya, Lakshmana, Vakrokti thi. Thus, while Vamaha and Dandi use the term in an extended sense, Rudrata and Vamana limit its relevance to a particular figure of speech, be it Sabda Alamkara or Artha Alamkara. And here lies the significance of Kuntaka and Kuntaka's school of Vakrokti, that he gives Vakrokti a new meaning, a new definition and a new scope. It was Kuntaka who fully developed a unique theory of poetics based upon Bhamaha's explanation of Vakrokti. Both Bhamaha and Dandi agree on the central place accorded in Kavya to Alamkara, which lends beauty. Kavya Shobha Kara Dharma. That power of creating beauty in poetry. Both hold that the mode of figurative expression or alamkara, diction or riti, grammatical correctness or auchitya, and sweetness of the sound or madhurya constitute the successful poetry. Both deal extensively with artha alamkara that gives forth amazingly rich, meaningful expressions. But according to Kuntaka, the Vakrokti is the primary and the fundamental thing which makes a beautiful, a successful, a glorious and a heavenly poetry which can overcome, which can get permanent place in the mind of Tadvidgana or the Rasika or the scholars who understand poetry, who talks about poetry. So the successful poetry comes with the Vakrokti according to Kuntaka, and Kuntaka's definition of Kavya and diction or margya riti are also important to understand the Vakrokti and understand the power of Vakrokti to create a successful poem. According to Rao, Dandi, however, differed from Bhamaha on certain issues. He gave far more space to the discussion on those figures of speech that are defined as phonetic features or Shabda Alamkara, like rhyme, Yamaka, than does Bhamaha. Kuntaka refers to the conventional definition of Kavya, which states that the friendly coexistence of words and meaning is indeed Kavya. Kuntaka refers to the conventional definition of Kavya, which states that the friendly coexistence of words and meaning is indeed Kavya. Sabdartha Sahitau Kavyam. And as I mentioned earlier, that the relation between Shabda and Artha is very much celebrated, very much respected in Indian philosophy. That Shabda and Artha, these two are like Parvati and Parameshwar. And if these two are together, then the beauty can be created or beauty can be come out. Kuntaka describes Vakrokti as Vaidagdha Bhangi Bhaniti, and that suggesting that Vakrokti is a clever or knowing mode of expression or Vaniti characterized by peculiar turn or Vangi or Vaichiti brought forth by the skill of the poet or Vaidagdha or Kavi Kushala or Tadvidgana. Thus, according to Rao, it seems that Kuntaka's concept of Vakrokti is something that brings within its comprehensive scope all known kinds of imaginative, innovative turns, ukti, vaichitra, and modes of suggestive indirect vakra, expressions, vaniti prakara, that are unique to poetry away from the banal words created by the skill, Vaidagdha or Kavi Kushala of a poet gifted with genius or pratibha. Now we should understand the Kuntaka's concept about Sahitya to have better understanding about Vakrokti and how Vakrokti creates great literature or great poetry. Kuntaka explains the idea of Sahitya. He said, Sahitya manaya shobha shalitang prati kapyaso annanutirikta manaharinya vasthiti. And it means that the Sahitya, Shabda and Artha and the relation of both is not only is not enough only to create great literature, but the Sahitya of Shabdatta with Shabda and Arthatta with Artha and Shabdartha, Sahitya of Shabda and Artha, all these are important. Not only the relation between Shabda and Artha, but relation of Shabdatta and Arthatta, Shabda with Shabdatta, Artha with Arthatta and Shabdatta with Arthatta is important to create a great literature, a great poetry. And he talks about different marga or diction or riti or style. He talks about three margas. One is Sukumara marga. Sukumara marga is essential condition of kavya according to Kuntaka. Kuntaka talks about four kinds of guna which are found in Sukumara marga, that is Madhurya, Prasada, Lavanya and Avijatya. For example, he took references from Kalidasa to explain this Sukumara marga and these four gunas of this marga. Besides Sukumara marga, he talks about Vichitra marga and he explains the characteristics in 10 karikas. There are another marga which is created by the characteristics of both the above said margas, and that is Ubhayatmak marga. So Sukumara marga, the Vichitra marga and taking the characteristics of these two margas, there is one another marga, what is Ubhayatmak marga. Later he mentioned about two more guna, and those gunas are Auchitya and Shaubhagya. And these gunas are also important. Next. And these gunas are also important in creation of successful poem. Now let us conclude. In conclusion, we can say that Kuntaka was very much language expert. He was such a great linguistic and language scholar in ancient India, in medieval India. Not ancient, in medieval India, that we can be amazed, we can be amused to think about it, that after that the linguistic theory what can be used in poetry, analysis of poetry cannot be developed or become so popular after medieval era or in modern era. And because of that, Kuntaka has enough significance in our history of thought, history of philosophy of literature. And the Vakrokti school is so unique that he redefined, he reshaped and he reconstructed the whole idea of Vakrokti, and he proved how Vakrokti is essential in creation of successful poetry. And here lies the significance of Kuntaka. And from the study of Kuntaka's poetics, we can understand that so many new theory and a new interpretation and new development of theory can be made based on Kuntaka's Kuntaka's idea of poetics. And G.N. Devi also already hinted that how the Western formalism and new criticism has similarity with this concept of Kuntaka and the other poetic thought of the Sanskrit literary theorist. And this is because of that, this Vakrokti and his contribution as Vakrokti-jivitam is significant in understanding Indian literary theory and Indian poetics. For further reading, there is a further reading list in e-content, and there is all the references and the web link for web data and document for your further interest and further reading. You can find e-content, and for the elaborative study you can consult the e-content. Thank you.